Hey everybody, Mike with Games Play Badly, and today on Session 0, I interview Dave, probably better known as DCBradshaw on Twitter, about his creations, which he has quite a few of, but two specifically we talk about. One of them is a setting for D&D that's set in kind of like the 40s, and it is something called Hardboiled Adventures. He has a second book coming out for that. One of the things that really tickled me was imagining heavies in the 40s being orcs or tieflings, or you go into a bar and there might be a tiefling singer. It's nice and smoky. It's just really, it's a really cool visual. The other one that we talked about was Little But Fierce. And Little Bit Fierce has really piqued my interest because it's basically a gateway game to get children into D&D or any other role-playing game for that matter. And that's something he's actively working on right now, and I am really excited for that to get released. Dave is a great guy. He has a bunch of stuff out there. We'll link it all below. And if you get a chance, definitely check him out. On top of that, I have my Dungeon Glitch t-shirt on. I've worn this one before, and I always love Matt's creations. If you would like a shirt like this or something else, there's a bunch of them up there, including flags and mugs and all sorts of stuff. Go to gemfirefly.com and peruse around, put whatever you want in your cart, and when you get ready to check out, put in our promo code BADLY15, BADLY 15 at checkout for 15% off your order. Can't wait for you to meet Dave. That interview starts now. So Dave, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good. We almost didn't record this entire interview. I caught it very early on in a little bit of a brain fog today, but I appreciate you coming on. And from, when we started talking, I went through and started looking at what you've produced, and there's quite a bit out there. There's some D&D stuff and there's some indie stuff that you've created, and all of it looks like a lot of fun. What out of all the things that you've created are you most fond of?
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm one of these people who has a million different ideas, so actually focusing on one thing and saying, right, that's the thing I'm going to write is quite difficult. So you'll see some projects are bigger projects and some things are clearly little whimsical ideas. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do that and I'll write it in a week and I'll put it out there for people to play with. I'd say the big one for me in terms of Dungeons and Dragons content is a project I wrote called Hardboiled Adventures. I've done 2 books for it. I did a main book called Hardboiled Adventures, and then I did a follow-up one called Johnny Snaggletooth's Casebook of Crime. And what those two are, it's kind of as the name suggests, it's the idea of, well, take your good old classic sword and sorcery fantasy world like Dungeons and Dragons, or could be anything, and time jump it and genre shift it a little bit into something reminiscent of 1940s. And so you get exactly what that sounds like. So you've got the same world, you've got the same rules and stuff, but you jumped the technology ahead and you've put this kind of noir spin on it. So you've got this world of, orc gumshoe detectives and gnome bartenders and tiefling femme fatales with guns and cars and tech magic and all the wonderful things that come with that. So I did the first book, which was just kind of, this is how you take the core rules and convert it over. This is how guns work. This is how classes have subtly changed a little bit, like bards are now entertainers and things like that. Paladins are now slightly more sinister, kind of inquisitor types. And I was really pleased with that, got a good response on it. I thought, well, I want to do more with this. The bare bones are great, but if you're going to do this, go big or go home. So that's when I did the follow-up book, which is my ode to books like kind of Xanathars and Tushers and stuff like that, hence the name. So that was like, well, okay, I want to do subclasses. I want to do magic items. I want to do spells, and really go into, as crazy as I can get with this notion of taking, pulp film noir and mash it together with traditional fantasy and see what bizarre stuff you end up with. So I'm really proud of the result, and I definitely want to do more of it. Run a couple of games of it. Sadly, never been able to play it yet myself. So I'm really hoping I can lean on one of my friends to actually run a game of it at some point.
That's sad. You'll get a chance to play your own creation.
Yeah, it's one of these things. But I guess at least from running it, you get to do lots of little things rather than, oh, gosh, I only get one character to play with. So I get to do one thing, whereas if you're running it, at least you get to have, you know, a million different NPCs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people forget the DMs are players too.
Absolutely, absolutely. But no, I'm really proud of what I came up with in that, and it would be great to get it out there more for more people to play it. And I'm kind of hoping one day that, you know, a larger streamer or larger streaming audience stumbles upon it and decides to have a go, because I think it could be a lot of fun.
I think you're absolutely right. As you were saying that, I immediately had ideas, and this is when I interview people, I have all these ideas to use their products. I just don't have enough time.
Oh, you're telling me. I didn't have time before I started doing this. I have a 2-year-old daughter, so now any time that I had is taken up with being a dad. So I get to write like in the late hours or early hours of the morning. But that's about it.
As she gets older, do you think you're going to try and get her into gaming as well?
Well, that's the plan, and that's kind of what I'm working on right now. You alluded to me doing some more independent stuff, and this is it's indie and it's D&D at the same time. I've done a few little projects that are kind of in the tabletop RPG education area, or very least in the tabletop RPG kids sector. So I did one project which was something called Shrumanji, which was I honestly I wrote it just for the pun. I thought of it and thought, Shrumanji, yeah, take the Jumanji franchise and parody it with adorable little animals. Let's do that. And I wrote that, and it got a good response. And it got shared by some people in that sort of community. And a huge shout out to the work done by Steph Campbell in the Tabletop RPG Kids forum. They're absolutely driving that forwards. But I decided I wanted to do something a bit more with it. It was a fun, silly little project. It was something you might play for one game or two. But I thought, well, actually, you know, in a few years, hopefully, my daughter's going to be of an age where she wants to try some of these things. And I'm not really sure what kind of gateway entryway sort of games there are in this. That brought me onto my current project, which is something called Little But Fierce.
Yes, that's actually the reason why I contacted you, because that looks so adorable.
Yeah, it was, again, it's just been rattling around in my head of, you know, how can, you know, D&D is great, and 5th edition, I think, is the most accessible version of the rules that I've seen so far. I've kind of dipped into other versions over the years. You know, I have actually got the red box somewhere on my shelf somewhere. I've never played it, but I do have it. And I had some experience with 2nd edition from actually games like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. But 5th edition is pretty accessible, but it's still tough. There's no getting around it. If, you know, intelligent, mature adults struggle at first to get into it, it's not that accessible for younger kids. And that's what I really want. I don't want to have to wait until she's, you know, 18 or 21 and then, you know, probably doesn't want to play it with her dad. So I thought, well, what can I do? What can I do to take this system that I do love and make it that bit easier? Can I, simplify some of those rules? Can I simplify the language as well to make it more accessible? Because even if the rules are simple, if it takes an adult having to explain it, it's still very intimidating. You know, I know a lot of people who switch off the second someone starts explaining rules, and there's a lot of them for Dungeons and Dragons. So that's the goal with this project, is to take the D&D 5e rules, simplify them down, strip out unnecessary things, strip out things that feel like they're there from a lawyer's perspective. There's definitely bits in the D&D rule set where it's like, I think you'll find that clause 77, paragraph 9 means that you can't do that without doing X, Y, and Z. Take that out. Right. You know, that's fine for dealing with power gamers, but if you're a kid, you just want to do everything. So yeah, take out all that stuff. You know, if you've got a cool item or a normal item you want to do something crazy with, go for it. You know, and don't be held back by rules. So I tried to boil it down to what's the essence of these rules? What's the simplest way of doing it? Take out all the nasty jargon and the troublesome terminology and have something that's a lot more accessible and a lot easier to play with.
Yeah, basically making whatever you're creating a gateway into D&D.
Absolutely, yeah. And if it is something that eventually becomes, well, I've played this and I want to try the real thing, great. 80-90% of the rules, maybe the terminology is a little bit different. You know, I've got speed instead of dexterity, because dexterity is, probably a word they don't know. So you got to maybe port over a bit of terminology, but most of the rules. Or if they decide, look, I had a great time with that, but it's, I don't fancy taking it any further, that's fine. It's a system that will play on its own. You have a great time. And if it's not the gateway to anything else, it did what it needed to do. Some kids, they played it, they enjoyed themselves. What more can I ask for?
I think games and children go hand in hand, and I think all of us who play games now played games as a kid, and I think they're great tools, educational tools as well, which I've talked to multiple guests about. So yeah, I love that idea. Now, is that currently in process right now?
Yeah, it's in, I think, one version 0.7 or something like that. So it's at a stage where there's enough of it that you could actually play a low-level game. You could play a game from about levels 1 to 4 if you wanted to. So I've got some very keen play testers who are trying it out with their own kids to see how that goes. So we're getting closer to something that I think is going to be ready for public consumption.
Yeah, I think from what you're telling me, I have some friends of mine who are educators in the Iowa school system, which I've mentioned in many videos, but they run a game club on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and one of those nights is D&D night for the kids who want to play. I think that type of product would be great in a school system where you're just trying to teach the beginnings of what D&D is, rather than being, because then you spend 40 whatever time you have going through rules. And probably these teachers are already kind of stripping things out to make things work easier. But to have something that was already kind of pre-made for that would be fantastic.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was a teacher for 10 years. I'm still in the education sector, but I'm not actually at the chalk face anymore. But absolutely, you know, if I were still teaching, I would want to be running a D&D club. But it's exactly what you said. You know, when would you run it? Well, it would be lunch times, and it might be for an hour or two after school. You're going to spend 5 hours just explaining the rules of the basic set, whereas this is hopefully something you can take away, read it, they understand most of it, and then you can, you know, give a quick refresh on important things and dive straight into it, rather than spending days upon days going through complicated rules, which is going to scare people off.
I also think that leads you into logical expansions for this work, as far as what are the next steps to introducing additional, more advanced rule sets into it?
No, absolutely. I mean, and the next step maybe go on to full D&D. If not, I'm really hoping that what I can build here is a good core framework, a good core rulebook that actually, whether it's me or other people say, great, I want to write for the Little Bit Fierce system now, which is kind of 5e, but kind of not. So that's what I want to do to begin with. I mean, the initial release I'm planning to do, it's only going to be 4 classes. It's going to be fighters, rogues, which are rebranded as thief, wizards, and either cleric or druid. I haven't decided yet. And it's going to be enough monsters, enough creatures that you could, you know, populate, you know, some dungeons and stuff if you wanted, but it's not going to be the whole shebang. I'm kind of hoping I can crowdsource, do something that's a bit more of a port of the full system resource document. That's going to be a big job, but that's kind of what I'm looking for ahead. But already I've got ideas of, you know, it'd be great to then do an add-on that does this, that, or the other. I mean, one of the things, not in terms of difficulty of rules, but one of the things I've done on this one is I've tried to strip out concepts that could be intimidating or controversial. You know, and taking a really simplistic one on this one, I'm not mentioning celestials or demons or anything like that, because it's got so much stigma attached to it. You know, some people will be perfectly fine saying, oh yeah, I've got angels and devils in my game. To some kids and to some parents of those kids, they'll go, whoa, I'm not having my kid playing something that's got, you know, these kind of religious connotations to it. So I've taken that out, but it means that later on I can say, well, actually, I'm going to make a little source book that's going to, you know, touch on some of these ideas. If this is something that someone wants to play with, you know, it's not in the core set, but actually, if you want to explore something along those lines because that's something that interests them, great. And whether I do it or whether someone else does it, I don't mind. You know, as long as, you know, kids are getting to play the content they want to play, whether it's, you know, exploring additional themes through additional sets, or, as you said, you know, trickier rules. Well, you've got the basics. Here's something that's more complicated if you just want to bolt it on.
Well, so now we're talking about gateway games. I think both of us probably had them. What was your gateway game?
It was when I was a kid. I think most people it was. I first got into all this hobby through Warhammer. So some of my school friends and my brother, we got into playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Warhammer 40k after that. And we discovered, I think it was, you know, back shelf of the local game store, they had a copy of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which I think was out of print at the time, but it sounded fun. So we picked it up. We played quite a lot of it. I played a halfling thief who eventually became a druid, and that was great. You know, so we played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay for quite a number of years. Then we tried other things. We played a little bit of the old, whatever the Star Wars role-playing game was at the time. and a couple of games of Vampire the Masquerade, but we never actually played Dungeons and Dragons. It was one of these weird blips that we never actually played it. And then jump ahead many, many years to when the kind of revival of, or very the revival of the popularity of a lot of these things through Will Wheaton's Tabletop, through Critical Role. Me and those same friends decided, let's have a go at one of these. None of us had ever actually played D&D, so let's have a go at it. And many, many years later, I tried what for a lot of people is their first experience in role-playing.
Right. Yeah, tabletop was transformational for the tabletop space, and Critical Role was that same kind of a catalyst for D&D and role-playing games in general. So without those two, I think the gaming industry would look very different today.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I think, whether it was just, lighting that spark again for people or something that's a bit more accessible, undoubtedly there are going to be a load of people now who don't know about Geek and Sundry, don't know about Critical Roles and the campaigns, but they've now spotted the animated series that's on Amazon Prime, and they're going, what's this? Oh, I want to play that. Right. And even if they don't then play D&D or they don't watch Critical Role, the show, it showed them that there's this thing out there. If you want to play a fantasy game, it doesn't have to be World of Warcraft on your computer. It can be the tabletop role-playing experience.
Yeah, and that experience has changed obviously during COVID. I mean, we have our half of our gaming group is actually based out of Iowa, so we've been playing remotely through either Facebook portal or whatever tools we're using for years. But with the pandemic, I know that the tabletop genre has changed. So now it's using a VTT or what have you to go ahead and play this, and that opens up the table to so many different people from all around the world, people you might not normally play with. So I think gaming in general has become this global phenomenon.
Absolutely. And I think, the whole trying to find a silver lining in everything that's happened over the last couple of years. No, absolutely. I think it's helped to make it accessible as well. There'll be a lot of people who said, I really wanted to play that, but none of my friends do. Or maybe they don't have any friends who are, interested in that sort of thing. Right. So now it can be a case of, well, actually, there's a great online community and there are always people looking for groups. So, you can find someone, who through Twitter or Discord or something like that and reach out and you can play a game with them, without having to, find people in your local area to do it. Equally, things like miniatures, that's always been, going back to Warhammer, every so often I think, it'd be interesting to go back to Warhammer. And then I look at my bank account and decide that's a terrible idea. But with virtual tabletops, it's a case of, well, actually, I've got, Roll20 or any number of tools, you just need, little pictures to be moving around the board or an icon, is close enough. And, so that takes out a lot of the overheads that might otherwise impede people playing these games.
You're absolutely right. The cost factor of it is much lower when it comes to miniature-based games. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. So I think, to your point, I started with D&D. I think I was on a school bus and somebody had their red box and they pulled out the little manual and pulled out these dice that look so cool. And I said, what do I do? He said, okay, I'm going to make you a fighter and you have a sword and you have this and blah, blah, because red box was all very basic. And so I was a dwarf, which was synonymous with fighter. And we played on his stoop for a couple of days and I got hooked. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old.
I think that's a lot of people's experience of it, and or something similar to it. I said for me, it was Warhammer, fantasy role play, and also things like Hero Quest and the like, which kind of nudged in that direction. It wasn't the same role playing experience, though you could, but you've gone from, oh, I've got an army of people to, I'm in control of this person, and my job here is to make sure that they stay alive, just that person, and make sure that they do well and they have experience. And then when you add on the role-playing aspect to it, which can be intimidating to some people, I'm very introverted, but actually it's a great way of being creative in that I get to explore all these other things. It's great.
Yeah. So we have several projects that we've talked about. I'm going to have links down to Dave's stuff so you can go and peruse everything. There is a lot out there and all of it looks fantastic. Look for more from him, obviously, with his latest production, which I just thought was the cutest thing on the face of the planet. I just loved it. I can't wait to see how that's implemented. I actually have a couple of kids that I want to play with, so I'm going to wait for that to come out before I do so.
I'm really looking forward to Peel Games Platinum. Obviously, I want to play it myself with my daughter when she's sort of, which is a little bit older. Realistically, we're talking, you need to be about kind of 5, 6-ish before you can play it. But it's one of those things where I think I thought I was going in the right direction with it. I was pretty confident it was. I'd got some bits of feedback from people that, this sounds really, really good. And it was only a couple of days ago when I got my first bit of playtester feedback of, right, I sat down with my kid and we played a game and she loves it. Yeah, she can't wait to play it again.
Oh, awesome.
And that was it. That's the words I needed to hear. There's the, I'm doing this right. I'm pretty sure I'm going in the right direction.
Right.
But when you hear, my kid had a great time, it makes it all worth it. So now I've got this extra drive to get this out there so other people can experience it.
Yeah, if this is a look into the rest of what you've created, as a matter of fact, during this interview, I've been circling through some of the artwork and things like that of the creations of Dave, but I can't wait to see what else you produce. It's fantastic.
You're very kind. Thank you so much.
So I do something with my interviews where I ask some hard-hitting questions. I call it my lightning round.
Okay.
And I do this just as a little bit of fun, and everyone gets to know you a little bit. So, and what I've learned, I've had a lot of people from the UK on this program. So I've learned not to ask the question cake or pie, because pies are very different.
Yes. Yeah, pie is the savory thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which I always say the United States needs more of, but I'm not going to get on that soapbox today. So spring or fall? I
think fall. So autumn for me. I definitely like the kind of colder, crisper days.
Yeah, I'll take either one, really. I mean, they're both rainy and they're both soggy, but one's with life and the other one.
I live in Scotland. It's rainy all the time. So.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. And even then, that is a relatively new thing. I know it's a great stereotype that all English people like tea. I cannot stand tea. For me, it's hot water with just a little bit of a bitter taste that doesn't appeal to me at all. Definitely a coffee drinker as a relatively recent dad, out of necessity to keep me alive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I totally get that. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate, absolutely. Yeah. It deserves Rebane.
Yeah, right. So out of all the games that you've played, what would you consider to be one of your favorites?
As in board game or tabletop?
Either way. It could be an RPG. It could be a tabletop game. And you can do one for each. You can say, what's your favorite tabletop game? What's your favorite TTRPG?
Okay, I think in terms of role-playing game, we'll go with the boring answer and go D&D for now. I'm hoping my answer can change over the next few years. There are so many good systems out there that I've seen little bits of. I want to play the recent Star Trek game as well. I think there's a good Star Wars game out there. There's the various ones that go into that kind of Stranger Things-esque vibe. I want to play some of them. It's just finding the time to. So for now, it's D&D, but I'm really hoping that I get to explore some more systems in the near future. In terms of board game, I do like some of the classics, but my absolute favorite has to be Marvel Legendary. For those who aren't aware of it, it's Marvel. So, I enjoy that as a huge comic book and Marvel film fan. But it's a deck building game, sort of like Dominion, but I think it's a bit more accessible. But I have far too many expansion packs from that because it's a great game. It's build a team of Avengers and fight, whatever supervillain of the week it is, and thwart their dastardly.
Perfect. Well, Dave, I appreciate you coming on and sitting down and talking to me. I cannot wait to get through some of your content. There's a lot up there, but everything, it seems like it is fantastic. Again, I don't have enough time in a day to play with everything. I wish I did.
Oh, me too. I've got the list of stuff.
Again, Dave, it was a pleasure. I wish you all the best of luck. I will have links down below to all of Dave's stuff. And if you like the artwork, was there a specific artist that you used for most of these modules, or?
A lot of my D&D stuff, it's the same pair of Portuguese artists I use. And I'm going to garble their surnames on this, so I'm going to apologize in advance. The first names are Catarina and Leonor. I don't think I've ever said their surnames out loud. Catarina Eusébio and Leonor Macedo, I want to go with as their surnames, but I will provide links so they can pop up at the bottom somewhere. They're absolutely fantastic. They've done so much of my stuff.
Dave, it's an absolute pleasure. I will have links down below to everything again. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and click the subscribe button, and I'll keep producing more videos. Well, I'll keep producing more videos even if you don't do that, but I'd really like to do it. So, Dave, we'll talk soon.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.